Amen. Man, it's great to sing about the hope of the Lord, isn't it? And it's exciting. And when things are going good in our lives, man, we can lean into Jesus, this is who you are, and this is what you're doing. But sometimes, and this is where we're going to talk through today, we're going to look in the book of John. John was one of Jesus' closest disciples, his best friend, you could say. You know, sometimes in life, what we're praying for and believing for, maybe we've been through a difficult season in our life, maybe there's some other things that are happening, and it challenges the very joy and the very faith that we have in the Lord. Today we're going to look at that, and we're going to look at some great promises that we can find right here in the Word of God. You know, many times in a room like this, there are people that are dealing with different things. They're struggling with they've got some long-term struggles, things that they're walking through, some long-term pain. Maybe it's in a relationship. Maybe they got some long-term pain in their emotions, dealing with some emotional things in their lives. Maybe even in their body, physically, they're dealing with some things, and they're struggling, saying, okay, God, it'd be great right now if you would hurry up and you would do what I know you can do. Have you ever been there? Like, Lord, it would be great right now. Just heal me right now. Restore this relationship right now. Fix this problem right now. Lord, I lost my job. I need you to help me out. Many times in those moments, we can be looking, and we know He can answer prayer. And we're wondering, God, how are you going to answer my prayer right now? We know that miracles can happen. We've heard them happening. Maybe we've experienced them in our own lives. And we're saying, hey, this would be a great time, Lord. This would be a good one. This would be a great, the season I'm in, this would be a wonderful time for you to do what only you can do. And there can be this feeling many times that makes you want to run away from God when He's not doing it and things aren't taking place in the time you would like them to happen. Sometimes you've been waiting a while, and a lot of times too, it's you can feel like this is really insensitive to even be talking about this. I'm so tired. Maybe some of you are here today saying, I'm so tired of talking about what God can do. I haven't seen Him do it yet. I hear about how He can do things. I know He can, but it just hasn't happened to me yet. There's a great proverb that describes this, Proverbs 25, verse 20. It says, singing cheerful songs to a person with a heavy heart is like taking someone's coat in cold weather or pouring vinegar on their wounds. Have you ever noticed sometimes, maybe this doesn't happen to you, but sometimes somebody is so excited and you're struggling, and their excitement is wonderful, and they're all cheery and they're all upbeat, and you're just like, you don't even know what I've gone through. Or they say, I've got the perfect solution to your problem. Listen, they're almost a little too happy, right? And I know this isn't any of you, right? Maybe none of you have ever been here, But just really, just in your flesh, right? You're struggling with maybe you're believing God for Him to fix a relationship. Or maybe you're believing God to financially, man, I need this blessing in my life. Or maybe you're believing God for this healing that just seems like it's taken too long, and someone comes around and they're excited, they're passionate, they're a little too upbeat, and you want to just say, please just go away. Please just go away. I know He's working for you, and I'm really excited about that. But please just go away. Just leave me alone. Just back off a little bit. Listen, I'm walking through some stuff. There's a tension between these two things, which is our current experience. Our current experience of where we are right now. There's a tension between what we're walking through in these seasons and in these moments of whatever we're believing God for, whatever we're hoping God's going to do. There's this tension which sometimes is so painful. It's so difficult, and many times it can even linger. The pain can begin to even linger in our lives, and this experience of where we are right now, and then there's this tension between that and the expectation of what we know He can do, of what we want Him to do. I don't know if you've ever been there. Maybe you're there right now, you say, man, this is my experience, that's my expectation, and there is a gap between the two. And a lot of times there's this is where the frustration can enter our lives. My expectation of God, I know that's what you can do, I know that's what you want to do, I know that's what I believe that you want, but this is my current place I'm at. This is my current just experience, what I'm currently walking through, and I haven't gotten there yet. I know it's there, but there's this gap, and I'm just, to be honest with you, I'm a little frustrated. I'm frustrated that it's taking long. I'm frustrated that it hasn't happened yet. I'm questioning maybe some things of if it will and when. And a lot of times this frustration begins to creep into our lives. And we have this expectation of what can happen. Maybe it's you had a good marriage, and all of a sudden your spouse tells you, hey, I think we need to separate. I think we need to go our separate ways. And you thought, what in the world just happened? Maybe you've been believing God for something, and there was an excitement of what looked like a breakthrough, and then all of a sudden it felt like it was stolen away. Maybe there's a job that was promised, and you say, man, this is going to be my dream job. This is going to be great. And you get into it, and all of a sudden you discover that the very thing that you had hoped it would be, it didn't turn out to be what you had hoped it would be. Even in spiritual things, you're going to take some steps of faith now, and you're going to begin, and you're going to pray, and I'm going to go to church more, and all of a sudden the spiritual things that you need to shift aren't shifting the way you had hoped that they would. Have you ever been there? Ever walked that road? Ever walked in through those situations? Go on a mission trip, and you're just preparing, God, like this, I'm going to take this step of faith. I'm going to fast. I'm going to go on this mission trip. I'm going to tell someone about Jesus. I'm going to do this, and I'm believing for a breakthrough, and all of a sudden it's not happening like you think it should. Your expectation, your experience, there's a gap between them. And this gap can begin to grow. It can begin to grow, and it can begin to take on kind of a life of its own. There's this gap that can begin to grow between what we expect life should be and where we currently are, where our current expectation is. And that gap, as it begins to grow, we can get stressed, right? I know none of you ever get stressed out. I know, you're just full of grace and love and mercy. I know I drive by some of you, and I see that love and that joy and that grace. It just exudes. It's all over you, right? Some of you even confess it, Pastor, I can't put the Gateway Church sticker on the back of my car because you don't know how I drive, okay? Listen, confession's good for the soul. There's an altar here. We can take care of this, right? But we can get stressed, and we don't know what to do, and we can get disillusioned. Ever been disillusioned? Ever thought, man, I bought into something, maybe, we don't know why it's turning out this way. This isn't the way it was supposed to be. We can get discouraged, and we can come in, and it can weigh down our very soul. And this becomes a state of limbo in our lives. A place of just doubt, doubt can begin to grow in this gap. And if doubt starts to live within that gap in your life, you begin to, as you're dealing with the current place you're at and the expectation of where you're going, it's very difficult to have any kind of breakthrough at all in your life once doubt begins to grow in the gap. Hear me. It's natural to say, it's human to say, hey, God, here's where I'm at, this is where but I'm not seeing, and if we're not careful, we can begin to doubt the very thing that we've heard, that we know to be true. We can begin to doubt the Word of God. We can begin to doubt the encouragement that once encouraged us. We can begin to doubt and say, is this thing even going to work out? When doubt begins to grow in our lives in the gap, it becomes this thing that begins to erode the very foundation of our lives. Now listen, we all wonder. We have moments of saying, God, I don't know. But when we begin to feed the doubt, when we begin to fertilize the doubt, right? When we begin to pour into the doubt, all of a sudden the doubt begins to grow, and in the very gap from where I'm at and where, God, I know what you have for me, it can begin to steal the very things that God wants to use in our lives. So sometimes something has to be replaced. Sometimes our emotions take over our hearts and our minds while we're waiting as we're looking at the gap. And let me just tell you, what God wants to put in the gap between your current experience and the expectation of what He wants to do is what He has designed for that place in the gap is faith. Everyone say faith. Faith. Another word for faith is trust. All morning as we're singing these songs, I trust in God, right? I have my faith in God, right? My Savior, the one, right, who's never going to fail. Listen, if you're singing that song and you're struggling to sing that song because doubt has crept in, you said, I don't know if I trust God anymore. I don't know if He's the one that's going to take care of me. If doubt has begun to grow, right? If the weeds of doubt have begun to grow in your life, it's time for you to step in and become a gardener and begin to remove some weeds and say, I'm going back to trusting in Him. I'm going to fertilize and bring into my life and begin to deposit into my life the faith that's unwavering. I determine to put my trust in Him, even though I can't see it. I don't even know if it's going to happen. Listen, it's natural to wonder, God, what's taking you so long? You ever wonder? God, I mean, this is where I'm at. I love telling the Lord when's a great time to fill in the blank. You know that one? You know, like, okay, God, it's been a while. You know what would be really great? Because right now, this is not a good time. And what would be really great is if in this not great time that you just came through in a big way. That would be a great, right now, right? I mean, this would solve so many problems, right? You ever coach God on how to do His job? God, this would be so good. Man, so many great things would happen. But faith is the thing that bridges the gap in our lives. I haven't seen it yet, but I'm standing in faith. Faith is misunderstood. So let's define it. Hebrews 11:1 says, faith shows the reality, the confidence of what we hope for. It is the evidence, the assurance of things that we can't see. Let that last part again. It says things we can't what? How many like doing anything with anyone when you can't see anything? Right? I mean, sometimes at night, our little 2-year-old little girl, Gigi, her crib's in our room, right? And so we turn, lights are off. I don't know if you've ever done this, where, kids are asleep, pray for the other two, and now, the lights are off because obviously you turn the lights on, she's awake. And so do you ever like walk into a dark room? And from the door to my bed is, I don't know, maybe 10, 12, I don't know, there's 10, 12 feet, I don't even know, right? And you think you know where all the furniture and all the toys are. You remember when the light was on, how everything got picked up. And you thought, even when the light was on, you're getting the kids ready, you're thinking, I got to move these toys because I'm going to have to walk back into this dark room. And I don't want to step on that Lego that's going to, dear baby Jesus, like that was painful, And all of a sudden you walk into that dark room and you close the door and you take a few steps and all of a sudden you forgot that one of them moved the little table, or moved a chair, or put a toy somewhere, and then all of a sudden you're hitting your knee and you're like, what? Jesus, what? And you're reaching for your phone, trying to get the light out. Listen, none of us want to do anything where we can't see. Why? Because we have this will. And this will is a control freak, right? Everyone say control freak. I want to see it. And when I see it, I'll believe it. I can't walk by faith because I can't see it. I need to know, right? Let me just tell you, the journey of faith with Jesus Christ requires you to walk into whatever room he's got for you with the lights off and trust him. And you may say, I don't know if I want to do that. Because what if I get hurt? What if I bump my knee? What if I step on that little Lego sent by the devil himself to put it right there on the floor? Right? What happens if I experience pain while walking in the journey of faith? We still go back to what we know, which is him. He's never going to leave us. He's never going to forsake us. Faith is the reality of the confidence of what we're hoping for. It's the evidence of things that we can't see yet. This thing called faith is the gap. It bridges the gap between where I'm currently at and where I believe God wants, what he wants to do in my life. Let me ask you, how many are in a current situation, but you're believing for a breakthrough? Anyone there? And it's hard, isn't it? You're saying, man, maybe it's been a day, maybe it's been a week, maybe it's been a year, maybe it's been a few years, and you're saying, God, this gap is growing. Can I ask you what's growing in your gap? What's growing in the gap between where you currently are at and what God wants to do in your life? If doubt has begun to grow, if frustration and anger has begun to grow, if these things that are natural, and you say, well, this is just natural, let me just tell you, you're actually a spiritual being, right? God has a spirit, right? There's a spirit of God, and when you die, your spirit goes to heaven, right? There are spiritual things at play. And so you may say, well, this is just natural. Well, it may just be natural, but God is saying to you, hey, it's time for you to trust in me. It's time for you to take some steps of faith. It's time for you to go on the journey of not knowing and not understanding and saying, God, this gap, I don't know how long, but God, I'm determined to trust you. Sometimes we just got to be determined to trust him. I've asked the questions, God, why is this happening? I know none of you asked that question. I've asked them, why is this happening? Why is this happening now? God, how should I don't know if you ever asked, how should I even pray? This week I was thinking about that, dwelling on that. God, how should I pray for this situation? How should I pray? God, how should I petition you? And I was reminded of the disciples that went to Jesus and they saw Jesus praying. They had been around him. They would have grown up knowing how to pray, right? They would have been in the synagogues. They would have heard people praying, and yet they went to Jesus and they said, how should we pray? And Jesus gives them, we know is the Lord's Prayer, right? One of the things it says is, your will be done. And as I was dwelling on, God, what should I pray? I felt the Lord just say, pray my will be done. Sometimes when we hear God's will, we think God's will is this thing that's going to hurt us, not for us, against us. Maybe we think God's will is to always take care of someone else and whatever's left over is what we get, and that's God's will. Can I just say, when we trust in our Heavenly Father, and I just felt like the Lord was saying, you have a piece of the puzzle, but I got the master plan. I went over to Joe and Faye's a few weeks ago. They had this massive puzzle. And I was looking at this thing, and I just thought, I don't know if I could complete this. If any expectation on my, if you complete this puzzle, you get to go on and you win. I don't know that I could have completed that puzzle. I'm looking at it, every single piece looks the same. You ever been there? They all have the same color. You see the box got the picture. I came back the next week, they had a different puzzle. Oh yeah, we finished that one. I'm thinking, I would be months into this, asking Jesus to point out the right piece to put in the right place, We see the box and we say, well, God, I have heard that there's a master picture and a master plan, but I don't really know. And we're looking at the one piece that we have and trying to figure out why this one piece, it should go right here. It's not fitting though. God, I don't know what you did, but you need to fix the puzzle. Because my puzzle piece and my answer and what I think, it needs to go right here, right now. Isn't that what we do? But God has a different plan, doesn't he? Faith is the confidence in advance of evidence. Faith is confidence God, I'm trusting you. God, my faith in you is confidence in advance of the evidence of it actually taking place. Now, if you're truthful and I ask you the question, how many people do you trust? You ask them to do something and you're trusting that they're going to follow through. After a while, you live a little, trust begins to dwindle, right? You love your kids, but you ask them if they brush their teeth and they tell you yes, and you know they didn't brush their teeth, and you grill them for another 5 minutes and they finally confess, I didn't brush my teeth. Go brush your teeth, Trust sometimes in our lives, sometimes we think, God, I don't know if I trust a lot of people. I don't know if I have enough trust and confidence in people in advance of what they're going to do. But God, you can trust, and faith is trusting in Him. Understand, faith is not something that, well, if I conjure up enough faith, your faith is not actually in you. You understand that, right? Faith isn't like, well, I don't have enough faith. It's actually, your faith is not in like somehow how much pumped up you can be to your faith is just in Him. Like, I trust Him. I don't even trust me to have enough of anything. I trust Him. Faith has confidence that something is true in advance of the evidence, and you can't trace any logical proof or reason why or any signs that anything changing is changing for the better, right? You can't, it's totally blind. I'll tell you, if this was like a pitch for like, hey, be a Christian and totally walk blindfolded through life, this isn't a great pitch, is it? Unless you know God. Unless you trust in Him. Unless you've seen Him already do some things in your life. Unless this book is more than just a history book and a history lesson. Unless this book is truly founded in what He can do. And these stories aren't just stories, but they're grounded, right? They're full. They're evidence of that. Every single time someone stepped out in trust, He was faithful. He was faithful. He came through. And yet you have confidence that something is on the way because you have faith. Let me just tell you, these are hard things when you really got some skin in the game. I can ask you, man, do you trust God? I trust God. If you're currently in a situation, right now, it may be difficult if it's not going according to plan or what you're hoping for and believing for. And right now, though, whatever season you're in, this is the moment to begin to exercise faith. Maybe you're not in a situation where you even have to exercise faith, but what I've learned is like daily I have to exercise faith. Daily I have to exercise trust. Daily I have to exercise my confidence in who He is and what His plan is. So faith is advanced confidence in who God is. It's confidence in something that's it's confidence in something that's real. It's something that really exists, but we just haven't seen it yet. Why are we talking about this? Because God still wants to move in our lives and in your life today. You see, salvation wasn't just a one-shot deal that gave you that golden ticket, like Willy Wonka on the Chocolate Factory, you know what I mean? Like, you didn't just get the golden ticket, and now you get to, own Willy Wonka's Chocolate Factory. You get to go to heaven. Listen, salvation was the beginning of a journey that was unlike anything you've ever experienced in your life. It's learning about a God you haven't seen. It's trusting in a God that you, God, Lord, I'm putting my faith in you. But here's what begins to happen when we go on this journey. In daily situations, it begins to build faith blocks, building blocks, trust blocks, if you will, right? Moments that we say, God, I don't know. I don't know when this is going to happen. God, I'm almost frustrated because, man, God, come on. Like, if I'm just real, God, you should have already taken care of this, right? And we have to step back and we have to say, God, but this is what you did before. And this is what you did in this situation. And this is what you did here. And when I thought, oh, man, I just didn't, when I wasn't even worthy of what you were going to do, man, you did this. And so, God, I'm going to trust in you because these other things you've done when I've trusted you, they're the building blocks of my life. Faith is not denying reality or circumstances. It's not wishing for something to come true, right? Faith is not, you remember you'd go to the mall and they'd have like the little wishing well, you know what I mean? Like you'd go and you see the coins and stuff like that, and people wishing, or maybe you've been to some place where there's some body of water and there's a little fountain, people, wishing on things, or you blowing out your birthday candles, wishing for whatever, like seeing a shooting star. Oh, we got to wish on that. Faith is not wishing for something, right? It's not even hope. Faith is in a category all by faith is confidence in some facts. And we're going to look at those facts that it's rooted in truth. And it says, this is what I know to be true. This is what I'm standing on regardless of what I see. Why is this important? When you begin to exercise this and begin to examine this within your own life and come to a place where you say, God, I trust you. I'm convinced that God, from the moment we accept him and relinquish control and surrender our lives, he is on a journey to gain more of the trust in our lives. Oh, Lord, I trust, because here's what I found, right? At the beginning, right, I trusted God for kind of like some easy things. And the further I got in, I had to start trusting him for other things. And my trust began to grow. And I've watched God do just some incredible things. Healing within our lives, financial breakthrough in our lives. Just blessings in a way I just thought, how in the world did this happen? And yet I've heard the Lord say, but I still want more of your heart. I still want more of your trust. I still want more. There's more of you to be relinquished to me. Can I just say, in the journey you're on, there's more of you that he wants. There's more of you. And let me just tell you, you're going to encounter moments where it feels overwhelming, where it feels like this is just destroying my life. And you have to trust in those moments. God, I trust you. That in this, you've got a plan. And I'm going to take just one step at a time and following your lead, because I don't have anyone else to go to. Because here's the truth. Where else are you going to go? Who else is going to fix your problems? Who else is going to, you? Have you tried that one? I've tried that one. Hey, I need to hustle more, right? I need to get a side job. I need to work harder. I need to do more. I need to, isn't that what we do? We're problem solvers, right? We're going to fix our lives and our problems, and we're going to, and let me just tell you, what I usually end up is tired and without real answers and real solutions in my life. And faith is not just, it's not just casually sitting by the pool and sunbathing and, Lord, you got it all, and you got it covered, and life is good. No, faith is actually, there's action to it as well. There's action to it. So what are some of these facts? What exactly are we rooted in faith? And how do we know that you have this, that I have this? And we're going to go to the scripture. We're going to go to John chapter 9, and we're going to look at some scripture here for just a moment. And we're going to journey through some miraculous things, miracles that are recorded within the history of the book of John. And we're going to look at some of these signs and wonders. Because here's the thing is that God still desires and longs for signs and wonders to occur in our lives. Now, that may be like what we're about to read here in just a moment, just a supernatural, blow-you-away sign. But God actually still wants signs and wonders to happen in your life, meaning the prayers that you've prayed and the expectations you've had in the journey you want. He wants to move in that so that you can say beyond a shadow of a doubt, God, this is you. This is you. It starts out in John chapter 9, verse 1, and it says, as Jesus was walking along, he saw a man who had been blind from birth. Now, maybe to you that little detail doesn't mean anything, but what's about to be asked, it sounds a little crazy. But have you ever noticed when you're dealing with a problem, you're trying to figure out why? Why, God, is this happening? Why? So this is already telling us something here. And then in verse 2, it says, Rabbi, teacher, the disciples asked him, why was this man born blind? You ever ask those questions? God, why did this happen to that person? Why did the horrific things happen in Israel? Why did the horrific things happen in Ukraine? God, why did the horrific things happen to innocent people in the Middle East? God, why did horrific things happen to innocent children, or they're trafficked and horrific things occur? God, why? God, why am I walking through this hard season? God, why has my prayer not been answered? God, why am I still dealing with this ailment in my body? Was it because of his own sin or his parents' sin? Now, what did we read just a minute ago? It says that he was blind from when? So how did he sin in the womb? Like, he can't sin. He hasn't even been born. He hasn't even breathed his first breath of air yet, right? As a tiny little baby. And the disciples are trying to get to the why. Why? Why did this happen? This is always what we tend to go to whenever healing is taught or talked about, and that is, why is it, we in our mind, right, we begin to think, why is this taking place? Why hasn't this happened? And we look back, and here's many times what we do. We try to look back to solve the problem of why. But I love what Jesus did. It's amazing what Jesus did. He actually doesn't look back to solve the problem. He actually looks ahead to answer the question. Jesus is already, I love that he teaches, we read, he uses every opportunity he can to teach. Guess what? He's still trying to teach you and I today. He's still trying to open up our eyes and understand. So we might say, why is this happening? Why is this even going on? And here's what I've discovered. God never answers the why. God never answers the why. We try to figure it out, but he never answers the why. Very rarely does God ever fill us in on the why. And just to be honest, there's a few reasons. Knowing why doesn't really help us, does it? Knowing why you're at the place you're at doesn't actually, it doesn't help us in any way. It actually may cause us to be more angry and bitter and resentful, and we may go back and say, well, it was my parents' fault, or it was this person's fault, or, we'll end up looking for someone to blame many times. And knowing the why, it doesn't help us at all. I think some of you probably need to get free from this. Stop asking why. Understand right where you're at. This is where you're at. Your experience, expectation. Don't worry about the why, where you're currently at, where he wants to take you. Faith is involved in this journey. But answering the question of why doesn't help us, and it won't lead us to faith. It won't lead us to trust him. We'll probably just lean in on the why, and we'll probably go find somebody, and out of anger and frustration, maybe we want to hurt them, right? Or maybe we want to just hold something over. Listen. Every time you see God, when you see him confront a problem in the New Testament, every time Jesus confronts, he never looks back. He's always looking forward. And he doesn't say, let me explain why this happened. No, he just says, this is the situation, and we're going to deal with this, and we're going to solve the problem right now. But it's interesting, the disciples are like you and I, aren't they? Jesus, why did this happen? Is that poor little baby, did he sin in his mother's womb? You're just thinking, well, no, because they're looking for answers. That's a crazy question to ask, but they're looking for answers. And they're trying to understand. And he doesn't say, let me explain all these things. And he continues, though. It says in verse 3, it was not because of his sins or his parents' sins, Jesus answers. This happened so the power of God could be seen in him. Then he goes on to give a more, let me just say, I don't even know if that answer works for you. If that's you and you're saying, man, this is what I've been dealing with for my whole life, so that the power of God could be seen in him. I don't know if you ask him, hey, You've been suffering all this time up to this moment so that the power of God could be seen in you. He may say, are you kidding me? All this was, no. But here's what God does, which is so great. He is a divine setup God. He has a way of setting us up with the max impact. And he says, you're going to journey, maybe it's a short time, maybe it's a long time, and then at the right time, the power of God's going to move. All of a sudden, there's going to be a breakthrough, and that breakthrough is going to shift some things, not just in your life, but in those around you. He goes in verse 4 and he says, we must quickly carry out this task assigned to us by the one who sent us, right? He gives them this theological answer. He says, we must quickly carry out the task assigned to us by the one who sent us. The night is coming, right? The night is coming, and then no one can work. He's talking about spiritual darkness. In verse 5, he says, but while I'm here in the world, I am the light of the world. I am the light of the world. And then he does something very creative. And in verse 6, he then spit on the ground, right? He spit on the ground and he made some mud. Now, if you're this guy and you hear this, you hear Jesus say, brother, I'm going to heal you today. And you're thinking, Jesus, did I miss a step? Did you get something? You know what I mean? Can you let's be there for a minute. The truth is, he probably doesn't care at all. He's just like, I'm just, what else have I got to lose? But Jesus over here, hawking up a loogie over here. Let me just heal you, bro. And you're just like, I don't know. You know what I have found is that Jesus' way of dealing and solving our problems has nothing to do with how we thought it would go, right? Can you imagine that man all these years blind, all these years dealing? Lord, one day, right? Don't we do this? Lord, one day if you can just solve this problem, and here's a great way to do it, right? Just one day I'm going to just look up and I'm going to look into the sky and my eyes are just going to become clear and I'm going to see this. Just one day. And little do we know, Jesus is going to come along and he's going to, man, it's been a hard day. You know what I mean? I just got something in my throat. I'm just going to spit on the ground and then I'm going to make some mud with my saliva, right? This sounds great, right? Some of you are just grossed out even thinking about this. And yet God many times has a miracle and has things in store for your life in a way he wants to do it that does not fit into what you think he should do. Because if you ask me, do you want some, let's just be honest with some of you, get around kids, right? They're gross, right? This is something a kid would do, right? I can see my children think I'm a napkin, okay? Every time I come up here and I'm like, I literally have to examine my clothing. And I'm like, I was like, man, is that a little spot right there from when I was holding Gigi? And she just thought, hey, daddy's a napkin. You know what I mean? Gross. But Jesus wants to do something in your life, and it's not going to happen the way you think it will. He has something else in store. And you may want to sit back and you want to say, now, Jesus, why did you want to, hawk up a loogie here and spit on the ground and make some mud? And who cares? Who cares why he wants to do it? Who cares what the fact is the end product is what we're interested in, right? Who cares how we get there? But here's what happened. He does this and he makes his saliva, mud pie, and then he spreads it. Oh my gosh, can you just see this? He's just smearing it all over this guy's face. This blind man must be like, man, what is going on? But here's what's interesting. He gets creative, not just with that, but this is what he says. He tells him in verse 7, he says, go wash yourself in the pool of Siloam, which means what? Sent. So the man went and he washed and then he came back seeing. And this is what I love in verse 8. His neighbors and others who knew him as a blind beggar asked each other, is this the man who used to sit and beg? We knew him from birth. We knew. And you know what's amazing? When you're in your moment of whatever you're going through, oh, I know you don't think about this, and I know you're never there, but people become judgmental of why you're there. You become judgmental of why people are where they're at. Well, if they wouldn't have done that, if they would have fixed their life, they would have gotten their act together, if they would have, all of a sudden everyone knows that's a for real miracle. But this is where the interesting part is. Jesus sends him to a place called sent, right? That means sent. Salome means sent. The sent one, the Messiah, the anointed one, sends him to a pool named after himself. The one that was sent. And he was sent to what? To save. And he's over there, and the symbolism is unreal. He sends him he goes to the sent one, he goes to the place, the pool, and he's there, and Jesus is on mission, and this man washes, what does he do? He washes away. So you can see that Jesus who was sent came to free us and bring salvation to our lives, and there's a washing clean as this man is literally washing his eyes, the sin, symbolizing the things that are being washed. Now he can see and he's free. Can I just tell you that Jesus was sent for you, to free you, to wash you clean, to make you new, and to cause you to see differently than you've ever seen before. You realize when you accept him into your life, the world looks different. Because that isn't Joe down the street who ticks me off. That's God. Birthed him in his mother's womb and has a plan and a purpose for his life. And that guy right there that ticks you off and that gets under your... God actually wants to get a hold of his life. So now you begin to see things differently. You begin to act differently. You begin to respond differently. This is so important as Jesus begins to perform this miracle. So we have questions. If faith is based on facts, what are those facts? And I want to give you 3 quickly. I'm going a little bit long today, but that's okay. This is good. At least I hope you think it's good. Because I'm convinced right now, more than ever, we need to come back to faith, trust in him. Because I'm convinced until we do, we actually won't see some of the things that we need to see in our lives. But this isn't on you to conjure up the faith. It's just you to point your attention to the one. And this is our facts. And then the first fact that we want to put, I want to put my faith in. We want to put our faith in. Here's the first one. My problems were never God's intention. But they were part of the condition of living in a sin-cursed world. My problems, your problems, the things you're walking through were not God's intention. This wasn't his best. This wasn't his plan. He didn't sit back and think, oh man, how can I cause pain and agony and suffering and grief? But they're part of the very condition of where we are. And why there is a need for a Savior, and why there is a need for Jesus to come and to die and to rise and to ascend back to the Father. There is a real need. And a lot of times we get our focus off and we begin to shift and we think, my problems, God, did you send these? What's going on here? So what's the first fact? I put my faith in the will of God and what he wants for me. This is where we have got to trust him. We've got to trust him. And we do struggle there. Because we're saying, God, I'm trying. Sometimes I'm trying to trust God. And I'm saying, God, I want to just be completely just 100% full of faith, but I'm struggling right now. But I know what you've done, and I know what you want to do, and I know what you can do. So Lord, I'm struggling my way to stay full of faith. But then the Lord does something, and I realize, Lord, your will is what I want in my life. Your will is what I want to see occur. Your will. And as soon as he saw this man's problems, the disciples said, what happened to him? Has he sinned? Oh, how could he have possibly sinned? This is where we're often stuck. Because when something bad happens in our life, we look back and towards what happened, and we want to figure it out. And we want to know who to blame. And we end up blaming ourselves. And maybe there was somebody else involved, but we end up blaming ourselves a lot of times. And this judgment and the things that we fall into in this moment, they're not from God. This is not God's plan. Do you understand what God's plan was? Was everyone remember the book, Genesis, right? And there was these two people. What were their names? Adam and Eve, right? That was the intent. The garden was the intent. That was the original place. And he made this perfect place. And guess what? Our great, if we want to find someone to blame, it was Adam and Eve, right? The problem in your life, it was Adam and Eve. Actually, no, it was the actual will inside of them, the nature. And that was the perfect place. And when sin came into the world, it disrupted what the plan of God was. And yet, he still begins to work in our lives in ways that we can't even see or fathom. Here's the truth, is that he's actually working in your life and has prevented things from happening in your life, and you just don't know it. You say, well, I don't know. He didn't. I guarantee you that as you have followed the Lord, as you have trusted the Lord, he has kept things from you. He has kept things from your family. He has gone before you. He's come behind you. Do you know how I know? It's the promise he made to us in his word. And you say, well, I haven't gotten this thing solved. Can I just tell you, if you only knew all the things he had already done, you would say, oh, I've got to trust in him. Of course he's got it. Of course he's got it covered. Our attitude, right? We tend to get this attitude that sometimes that it's God's fault that we're in this situation. Here's what happened when you start to have this mindset towards God and you begin to feel the resentment towards him, you take steps away from him. And there's a distance that begins to be created. And there's a weight that hangs on our life. Is this something that every one of us in life, at some point, we're going to face something like this? Here's the other thing. If we don't blame God, and I want to go back to this for just a second. Many times we blame ourselves, and I want us to hear this for a moment. Be careful when you begin to blame yourself. This problem, it's my fault. This problem, I'm the problem. Listen, trust him. Trust him. We're looking for someone to be the scapegoat of this situation in our lives. And if in any way we've made some wrong steps, his love for us and his care for us, man, it's more than just, okay, there's consequences to sin, but I'm just saying, if you're following Jesus and you're saying, why hasn't this happened? If your thought process is, well, it's either God, he's just holding back on me. I haven't, showed up to church enough. I haven't given enough in the offering plate. I haven't, or it's me. Let me just tell you, that's not who it is. In fact, what we want to go back to and we want to stay focused on is the very thing that the very problems that you're facing and that you're walking through, God never intended for your life. They're part of this very place that we're at, this place that we're walking through this. And there will be a day. Here's the thing is, you ever ask the Lord, like, Lord, why can't you just fix this right now? And here's the thing is, Jesus could show up and he could fix your problem right now. He can make every single one of the pain that's in our lives go away just like that. But he would have to return. If he returns, right? He returns, that's it. That's done. And every other person that has not found Jesus yet, hasn't understood the hope of who he is, hasn't come into the realization, and when Jesus returns, that's it. And so you may be saying, listen, God, I need you, and if you'll fix this, listen, he can fix all of our problems just like that, but he'd have to return. And when he returns, he's going to create a new heaven and a new earth, and then there's not going to be any pain and any sorrow. Listen, when we go to heaven one day, there's no pain and there's no sorrow. But let me just tell you, what you're walking through, stay faithful to him, because he does have a plan, and he hasn't given up on you, and he hasn't abandoned you, and it's not time for you to blame you or blame God. In fact, let me just tell you something. When you're looking for someone If you're looking for someone, anybody ever get mad at a situation? No, you're all just so good. Some of you got mad this morning. Listen, I've got mad on Sunday mornings, right? Why is this taking so long? You know, I always tell people trying to get my kids out of the house is like trying to get the children of Israel out of Egypt. You know what I mean? There's a lot more of them. I only got 3 kids. You know, sometimes it's like, come on. But if you're frustrated, you're overwhelmed, and listen, you want to get mad, here's your second fact here. When I need to get mad, you don't need to get mad at God. You don't need to get mad at yourself. But here's what you need to do. You need to take it out on the devil. Some of you are like, oh, that's that cheesy Christianese. Can I just tell you, he's the author of it. He's the one. Well, how do can I physically just, do whatever you got to do. Punch the air. I don't know what you got to do. But Acts 10:38, it says, and you know that God anointed Jesus of Nazareth with the Holy Spirit and with power. And then Jesus went around doing good and healing all who were oppressed under the power. Listen, all who were oppressed by the devil, all who were under the power of the devil, for God was with him. Listen, the devil's real. I don't know. Maybe that's a news flash to some of you. But if you want to get angry, you want to get frustrated, and you say, devil, your plan is to what? Steal, kill, and destroy. What's God's plan? God said his plan is that we would have life and have it to the fullest. But a lot of times we're looking through the lens of what we have and we're frustrated and we're saying, God, why hasn't this happened? I'm frustrated with you and I feel guilty now for being frustrated with you, so now I'm frustrated with me because somebody's got to be, it's somebody's fault. Can I just say, get mad at the devil? Get righteously angry and say, not on my watch. You're not going to steal my joy. You're not going to steal and destroy my family. You're not going to steal and destroy my marriage. Not on my watch. Some of you got to get righteously angry because you're taking it lying down and you're not getting worked up and saying, not today, devil. Because see, here's the thing is, the whole little phrase, he's come to steal, kill, and destroy, that's not just like, well, that one situation. It's every single day. He's coming for you. He's coming for the things you value. He's coming for the things that bring you joy. And you're sitting over here and you're saying, God, why hasn't this happened? Man, maybe this is my fault. God, maybe this is your fault. And let me just tell you, he is the author. He's the one. One day, we're not going to have this pain. And until that moment, we trust and say, God, I don't understand this. And we want to get mad, we get mad at him. Let me just tell you some of the best times. I think it's some of the best prayers I've prayed is when I'm mad at the devil. Because usually it's when something has happened to someone I love. My kids wake up with a nightmare. Not just a bad dream, a nightmare. Papa Bear over here is like, we're praying over them, we're walking, let me just tell you, some of you got to get angry and mad at the devil. And you got to understand what he's trying to do. And you've got to understand the very season that we're in. One day there's going to be no pain and no sorrow. And until that day, we're going to trust. We're going to trust. I always think it's interesting, one factor that we always forget. When we read the story about Jesus, spitting on the ground and making a mud pie and smearing it all over the guy's face. When the breakthrough comes in our life at the right time, sometimes the right time is because he's trying to work something out in you. Sometimes the right time is because he's trying to position some people in your life. But the right time for this man that was blind was at this right moment when Jesus was walking the earth and just so happened, come on. He had just so happened to walk by this guy. And he's healed. Goes wash. And then who was affected? Everyone that knew him. Can I just tell you? Stay full of faith. Don't let the gap become full of weeds. Let faith dwell there. Because when the breakthrough comes, the ripple effect of what God does in your life will affect those closest to you. Do you know the hardest people to tell about Jesus is those closest to you? Because what do they know? They know your past, don't they? Oh, I remember you in high school. Oh, I remember some things we did together. I'm pretty sure Jesus isn't going to forgive that. I remember things and I saw you do, and oh, I remember. Hey, those closest to you know you best, don't they? Can I just say, when God begins to move and the breakthrough comes, listen to me, those that are struggling in their own walk, man, God, when he moves and the breakthrough comes at the right time, at the right moment, when that breakthrough comes, they can't deny what God has done because they have watched you journey through this. Leslie and I have journeyed through moments, some short, some long. And I've been amazed at the people in my family and extended family, that God has been able to use those moments to minister to their lives. Because they're those that I thought were too far gone. I thought, man, I don't know. And we're still seeing God do some things. Can I just encourage you? Be men and women full of faith. Be men and women full of faith. I want to ask our team to come. I got this last one for you here. The third fact that I put my faith in, and that's this, that Jesus is the source. Everyone say source. He's the source of supernatural power in my life. He is the source. He is the solution. Jesus Christ is the source. Now you say, I know that. Listen, hey. I know you know it. I need you to know it. I know that you know it here. I know Jesus is my... No, he's your source when he's the one you run to. He's your source when he's your first call, when you call him first. You know what I mean? Like, problem happens in your life, who do you call first? Well, I call my mama, I call my best friend. Here's the thing. If he's your source, and when something occurs, the first response should be, Jesus, I got to tell you about this. Because, Betty Jo, she can hear it, and she can complain with you, but she can't solve it. When Jesus is the source, he's the source of the supernatural power in your life. So the man that he went to the pool and he washed himself at the pool, he was sent by the one, and he was healed both in his body and his spirit. And we go to Jesus and we reach towards him and we say, Jesus, I need you to work within my life. Jesus, I need you to work within my life. Say that with me. Jesus, I need you to work within my life. You're my source. You're the one. I don't need anything else, but I need you. I can't live without you. I want to be consumed by you in every single way. And when we talk about Christianity, we're not talking about just a philosophy or a moral way to live. We're talking about faith in a living God. We're talking about a relationship with Jesus Christ. And you think, well, how can I have a relationship with someone I haven't seen? Let me just tell you, start with some letters. Some of you remember getting some love letters. Some of you remember getting some text messages. Some of you remember developing a relationship. When you talk to him, you trust him, you believe in him. God, I'm taking these steps of faith. I'm taking these steps of faith. And we're talking about a relationship with Jesus. When we need something, we reach for the person and we say, Jesus, I believe that you are able to release the source of what I need. I realize that there are some right now here that are watching, maybe that are watching us at some point, and you need Jesus to move in your life. I wish I could tell you when. I wish I could tell you how. If you knew how, you might gross you out. You may not be comfortable with how. You want to know when. You want to know the exact day. I wish I could tell you that. I can't. Because I have never been clued into what and when and how, but he's always done it. There's still things I'm praying and believing for and I haven't seen yet. But I go back to those building blocks. Lord, it's what you did in the past. I'm going going to trust you. The pain that you're walking through right now, it's real. Can I just encourage you with this? The very pain that you're carrying right now, what I found is when we walk through seasons of pain, it actually draws the presence of God. The Spirit of God, the Holy Spirit, is called the Comforter. He's drawn to us when we begin to cry out to Him in our pain. We say, God, I don't understand. Why again? Why is this happening? God, is it me? Do I not have enough faith? Am I broken? Am I the problem? God, I'm frustrated. Is it you? Is it some God? We go back today. We say, God, I put my faith and my trust in you and you alone. You know, amen means let it be so, right? It's a sealing of what God wants to do. Listen, I love you. Join us next Sunday. We're going to do part 2 of this. If you want to be a part of our Fun Fest, meet us in the conference room. Have a wonderful day. Make sure you look at those announcements. We love you. God bless. Oh, if you're a guest, love to meet you over here at the welcome area.